Petra, the rose city carved from living rock southern Jordan, 1812. Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt disguises himself as an Arab merchant, wearing local robes, speaking Arabic, pretending to make sacrifice at Aaron's tomb. His Bedouin guide leads him through a narrow canyon, walls rising 80 meters on both sides, blocking out the sky. They walk for a kilometer in near darkness. Then suddenly, through a crack barely 2 meters wide, he sees it. A facade carved from rose-red cliff face. Columns, statues, and details so intricate they seem impossible. No human could carve this. Yet someone did 2,000 years ago. In the middle of a desert, hidden in a canyon, he has found Petra, a city carved from living rock, lost to the Western world for 600 years. But who built it? And why did they abandon perfection? The Nabataean miracle. Water in the desert 300 BC. The Nabataeans, Arab nomads who controlled trade routes between Arabia, Egypt, and Syria, chose the most impossible location for a city. A desert valley surrounded by towering sandstone cliffs. Summer temperatures reaching 45 degrees Celsius. Annual rainfall barely 15 centimeters. No river, no lake, no obvious water source. Yet here, they built a thriving city of 20,000 people. Their secret? Hydraulic genius that wouldn't be matched for centuries. The Nabataeans understood that desert flash floods, brief, violent storms, were opportunities, not disasters. They carved channels into cliff faces to capture every drop of rain. They built dams across wadis, dry riverbeds, to trap floodwater. They created cisterns, underground chambers carved from rock to store water year-round.
The system was staggeringly complex. Over 200 cisterns, some holding 1,000 cubic meters. Hundreds of channels carved into cliffs, directing water precisely where needed. Ceramic pipes, some sections still functional after 2,000 years, distributed water throughout the city. They even used pressurized siphons to move water uphill. Building this system required extraordinary labor. Workers carved channels into vertical cliff faces, suspended by ropes, chiseling sandstone with iron tools. One mistake, a channel angled wrong, meant water wouldn't flow. Workers had to recalculate, recarve, test again. Some channels took years to complete. Falls from cliff faces killed workers regularly. Ropes frayed in the sun's heat and snapped. Workers plummeted to their deaths. Flash floods during construction swept away teams working in wadis. Bodies were buried quickly. Desert heat decomposed them within days. No monuments marked their graves, but their water channels still function, carrying storms' brief gifts to ancient cisterns, carving the impossible. The Treasury Al-Khazna, is Petra's most famous structure, a 40-meter tall facade, carved entirely from the cliff face, not built with blocks, not assembled, carved. Workers removed everything that wasn't facade, leaving only the final form. The process began at the top. Scaffolding was erected against the cliff. Workers started at the highest point and carved downward. This prevented debris from damaging completed work below. They used iron chisels and hammers, striking thousands of times to remove each cubic meter of rock. The precision is astounding. Columns are perfectly cylindrical. Capitals match classical Greek orders. Decorative elements are symmetrical. This required master craftsmen working from detailed plans, constantly measuring, ensuring alignment. Any error was permanent. You cannot add stone back. Creating the Treasury required removing approximately 20,000 cubic meters of sandstone. If workers removed 2 cubic meters per day, optimistic estimate, the carving took 27 years. More realistic estimates suggest 40 to 50 years. Generations of workers spent entire careers on one facade. The scaffolding itself was engineering challenge. Workers carved holes into the cliff face to anchor wooden beams. These holes remain visible today. Rows of square sockets climbing the facade. Building scaffolding that could support dozens of workers required enormous timber, imported from forests over 100 kilometers away. Transport alone was a monumental undertaking. Workers operated in brutal conditions. Desert sun reflected off pink sandstone, creating oven-like heat. No shade. Limited water every drop brought up to the scaffold. Summer work was near suicidal. Many collapsed from heatstroke and fell from scaffolds to their deaths. Why build something so elaborate in such a location? The treasury wasn't treasury. No gold was stored there. It was likely a royal tomb, carved to demonstrate Nabataean wealth and power. It announced to every visitor, "We command resources to carve mountains. We are not nomads. We are empire." Petra transformed from independent capital to provincial city. Romans brought their own architectural vision. They built a colonnaded street through Petra's center, using traditional Roman construction with columns and blocks, not carving. They constructed a large theater, partially carved from cliff face, partially built with masonry, holding 8,500 spectators. They added temples, baths, and monumental arches. But Roman construction was fundamentally different from Nabataean. Romans built on Petra. Nabataeans carved into Petra. Romans imposed their geometry on the landscape. Nabataeans became part of the landscape. The water system was expanded. Romans built new channels, larger cisterns, elaborate fountains. Petra, under Roman rule, reached peak population, perhaps 30,000 people. But the seeds of decline were planted. Rome's Pax Romana made caravan routes safer, but also less profitable for Petra. Trade routes shifted. New ports on the Red Sea offered faster maritime transport than desert caravans. Petra's strategic importance declined. Revenue dried up. Maintaining the complex water system became difficult without trade wealth. The earthquakes. When mountains moved 363 AD, a massive earthquake struck. Buildings collapsed. Carved facades cracked. The elaborate water system fractured. Channels misaligned. Cisterns shattered. Pipes burst. Petra could be rebuilt, but the water system's precision was damaged beyond complete repair. Another major earthquake hit in 551 AD. More devastation. More structures lost. The city that had survived by mastering water began dying from thirst. Maintaining sophisticated hydraulics required wealth, expertise, and labor. Petra had none. Population declined. Skilled engineers departed. Knowledge was lost. By 600 AD, Petra was largely abandoned as a city, though some structures remained in use as churches and monasteries. The Byzantine period saw conversion of tombs into churches. Nabataean, sacred spaces, repurposed for Christian worship. But the city's glory days ended. The Crusaders briefly occupied Petra around 1100 AD, building a small fort. But they found ruins, not a living city. They stayed briefly, then left. After them came only Bedouin tribes, using the carved structures as temporary shelter, knowing nothing of the city's history. For 600 years, Petra was forgotten by the outside world. Only local Bedouin knew it existed, and they kept it secret, partly from superstition believing ruins were haunted, partly from protectiveness of their territory. The rediscovery and robbery, Johann Burckhardt's 1812 rediscovery, brought Petra to European attention. His published accounts created sensation. Explorers, archaeologists, and treasure hunters descended on Jordan. The 19th century was catastrophic for Petra. Treasure hunters ransacked tombs, searching for gold. Nothing was found. Nabataeans buried their dead with modest goods, and any valuables had been looted centuries earlier. But the damage was done. Carved interiors were destroyed. Inscriptions were chiseled out and sold. Statues were beheaded and smuggled to European collections. Archaeologists weren't much better. Early excavations were destructive, digging without documentation, removing artifacts without recording context. Knowledge was lost forever. By the time professional archaeology arrived in the 20th century, much damage was irreparable. Tourism began in the late 1800s. Initially, a trickle of adventurous travelers became flood. By 2019, over 1 million tourists visited annually. Mass tourism brought revenue, but threatened the site. Sandstone is soft, easily eroded by touching, scratching, climbing, graffiti-scarred facades. Vibrations from vehicles caused microfractures. The Treasury's lower sections showed visible erosion from millions of hands touching the stone. The modern battle. saving Petra today. Petra faces existential threats. Climate change is altering rainfall patterns. Flash floods are more intense and unpredictable. In 2018, a flash flood killed 13 people in the sick. Tragic reminder that ancient dangers persist. Rising temperatures accelerate erosion. The soft sandstone, exposed for millennia, deteriorates faster under extreme heat. Tourism is a double-edged sword. It generates revenue for conservation, but causes damage. UNESCO and Jordanian authorities struggle to balance access with preservation. Restrictions were implemented. No climbing facades, no touching carvings, regulated pathways, but enforcement is difficult. Tourists want photos, selfies, the perfect shot. They touch walls, climb barriers, ignore rules. Salt crystallization is slowly destroying carvings. Groundwater carries dissolved salts into porous sandstone. When water evaporates, salt crystals form inside the stone, expanding and causing it to crumble. This process is accelerating due to changing water tables and rainfall patterns. Conservators fight losing battle, cleaning salt, applying consolidants, monitoring damage, but nature is patient and persistent. The Bedouin people who lived among Petra's ruins for centuries were relocated in 1980s to a nearby settlement. This removed human habitation pressure but also removed traditional guardians. The Bedouin understood Petra's dangers, flash floods, unstable cliffs, hidden cisterns. Their removal meant lost knowledge. The eternal question: who were they? We know the Nabataeans built Petra, but who were the individual workers? Who carved the treasury? Who designed the water system? Who died falling from scaffolds or drowned in flash floods? Nabataean inscriptions exist throughout Petra, but most are fragmentary. They record dedications to gods, boundary markers, ownership claims. They don't record workers' names. The architects, engineers, and masons remain anonymous. The water system that sustained 30,000 people was designed by someone whose name is dust. Why did they abandon Petra so completely? Earthquakes damaged it, but cities rebuild. Trade route shifts diminished it, but settlements adapt. What made Petra uniquely impossible to sustain? Perhaps the answer is simple. When the water system failed, the desert reclaimed its territory. Without hydraulic mastery, Petra was uninhabitable. The city that conquered thirst died of thirst. The rose city endures. Stand before the treasury at dawn. Watch rose-red stone glow pink as sun strikes it. The color shifts, rose to orange to deep red, as light changes. The Nabataeans chose this cliff deliberately for this effect, for this beauty. The facade is silent. The workers who carved it are 2,000 years dead, but their work speaks. Every chisel mark, every precise measurement, every perfectly carved column. This is their voice, their legacy, their immortality. Petra isn't just archaeology. It's testament to human audacity. Building a city in desert where cities shouldn't exist. Carving mountains into art. Engineering water systems so sophisticated they remained functional for centuries. The Nabataeans didn't just survive the desert, they made it bloom. But it's also testament to impermanence. Empire fell. Knowledge was lost. The city emptied. For 600 years, Petra was forgotten, arguably its best preservation. Human absence protected it. Now human presence threatens it. The Rose City endures, carved from living rock, slowly returning to the mountain from which it was born. The sandstone that Nabataeans shaped is being reshaped by wind, rain, and time. Eventually, perhaps in centuries or millennia, the facades will erode to nothing. The treasury will become a shallow indentation. The water channels will fill with sand. But not yet. For now, Petra stands, pink stone testament to the anonymous thousands who carved impossibility from desert cliffs. Their names are lost. Their work remains. The Rose City waits in its canyon, guarding secrets of the workers who shaped mountains and then vanished into time, leaving only stone and silence.